Last weekend in the army, huh?
And you realize that people were just living here now. And on the other hand, you see the whole kibbutz going up in flames, and it feels like a scene from a movie.
We're here in the Jerusalem studio opening our special broadcast this morning, Saturday morning, October 7th. This morning began an hour ago with heavy rocket barrages from the south up to the center of the country. One person has been killed, that's what we can report for now, who was wounded by the fire. There is also suspicion, reports of suspected infiltration by militants into southern communities, and live fire on vehicles. For now, it must be said, these are only initial reports. The IDF spokesperson is asking residents of the Gaza envelope not to leave their homes. Residents are reporting that they see armed squads of militants moving around outside homes and in these areas armed with weapons.
One of the commanders, Abekasis, comes into our room, the commander's room. He shouted at us, get up, there's a war. This was around, I think, 7:30, 7:45. I woke up right away and we were supposed to have a drill, so I wasn't really sure. Maybe it's a drill today, maybe they're scrambling us now. I couldn't figure out if it made sense. It was a matter of 5 seconds until I opened my phone. There we saw the pickup truck in Sderot and what everyone else saw, I believe. Basically, from that moment, we all immediately got into uniform. Within a minute, we were all outside, waking up the whole company, and we started running through everything that needed to be done, briefing the commanders while the soldiers got organized in their rooms. And I believe that in something like a few minutes, we were all already with the company and basically ready for our missions, so we'd know how to proceed. Basically, from there, we continued. Our company commander laid out the missions, what we were doing, what the situation looked like at that moment, and what we had to do. We started running all the equipment. We were pretty much ready, actually, because we were supposed to have a very serious week of training, basically a battalion drill.
And then he says, open your phones, look, there's trouble all over the south, it's been taken over. We open our phones, we look, and we're in a bit of a shock. And from there, we basically start organizing all our gear, which was already ready in the containers. We just had to get the ceramic plates for the vests and a few other small things, some last-minute preparations. And I remember that our part of the team, we left on the buses.
I believe that around 11:15, we started heading out on the buses toward the Gaza envelope. We ran into a lot of traffic on the way. It was really a bit of a mess. We started moving cars, soldiers were getting off to clear the road.
I really remember getting on the bus. It seemed so strange to me because it was still a holiday and Shabbat, and I didn't turn on my phone until the truly shocking news finally reached my ears as well. And during the bus ride, the picture started to become a little clearer as much as it could. Oh, and I decided to take a pretty unusual step as a religious guy who was still observing Shabbat, knowing that my family also keeps Shabbat. I decided to send a message to my brother. I wrote to him, and it was clear to me that I needed to reassure them. I said, I'm okay, everything's fine. Right now I'm heading south to provide security, and please don't worry. And before I could even tell him, he said, there's nothing to tell me. I've already left the house. I'm already on reserve duty. And I realized that I'm sort of heading into the unknown and that the picture is still not clear at all. And from there, the chaos just begins. I remember a specific image that I think the whole bus remembers. It's us passing by Highway 3 on the way from Modi'in toward the southern region, and we see someone in his Shabbat clothes and his wife just hugging next to their car, and you can't hear anything, but you just see it, and it's a picture that simply speaks for itself. You see the uncertainty, the hurried preparation, the not knowing what to expect.
During the drive, really, just as they said, we started to grasp the situation. Everyone pulled out their phones and started to figure out what was happening and where it was spreading. And at a certain point, I realized there were also terrorists in Ofakim. My girlfriend lives in Ofakim. I immediately tried to get in touch with her to find out what was going on with her and how she was doing. At first, she didn't answer. And later on during the drive, I think as we were approaching Beit Kama, she finally explained that they were in the safe room, that they'd heard gunshots, and that there were clashes in Ofakim. Understanding the situation, we got to Beit Kama. At Beit Kama, we put on our vests and our helmets. We literally had our weapons aimed at the windows, and we were ready for anything, for any scenario.
When we got to Sa'ad, we had to secure the area. We still didn't know the exact locations of the terrorists, and we basically covered all the open areas. And of course, to help out, forces were arriving with wounded, and Sa'ad sort of became a casualty collection point. We lent a hand with whatever we could. We got there with our vehicles and treated them.
And we stayed there to secure the junction as well. And I and another guy went to the main gate of Sa'ad, and we treated the wounded there who arrived from the Golani outposts.
We're not feeling very relevant. The whole team is already eager to go in. We don't even know where, but we're eager to go in, to fight, to join the combat, to do something. We're sure we can make the situation better. We're sure we can be more impactful than just standing at some assembly point. And in the meantime, there are tons of code red alerts, tons of impacts.
And later on, around 5 or 6, we got the order to join the battalion, to help them with the fighting, to relieve the companies that have been fighting for hours. And we started moving there. We literally get back on the bus and start driving towards Be'eri.
I can say that Highway 232 looked like an obstacle course. Let's say, for 5 minutes of driving, you're just weaving between cars and bodies. Not fun, a lot of smoke on the sides. You see a lot, mostly just burnt things. And we basically got to Be'eri. At the entrance to Be'eri, we waited there for a few minutes. They didn't know exactly what, who, how many should go in, why we should go in, where to go in, where's the best place, where to go. Until at some point, our company commander decided he'd send a message to the division and told them, we're going in. There are 40 of us here, no way, we can't stay outside, it's just not happening. And basically, he got the approval.
It felt to me as if it wasn't real. You see a community that on one hand is so pastoral, and you see areas that are intact and still okay, and you realize that people were just living here until now, and on the other hand you see the whole kibbutz going up in flames, and it feels like a scene from a movie.
At last light, we're entering the kibbutz, and the first image we saw, it was truly horrifying. There were 2 bodies, I think they were elderly, face down on the ground, wearing Blundstones, kibbutznik jeans, and a relatively dark shirt, either black or blue. And we're starting to understand that this isn't a war, that some kind of massacre happened here. That if they got into the kibbutz, it means the situation is not good. Because until now, we were sure it was maybe on the outskirts, and we saw their Toyotas, and we saw things on the way on Route 232, but the picture is starting to get much worse than anything. With every passing moment, we realize that this is, wow.
I remember we found a lot of bags of RPG warheads there. There were Kalashnikovs and things you're not used to seeing every day, even though we'd spent a lot of time in the West Bank, not in that quantity and not on that scale.
Our mission was basically to be in a house and set up a defensive position, to guard the house, the area around the house, and to bring the wounded there, to set up a kind of casualty collection point. A collection point with 360 defense inside Be'eri, so to speak. No enemy inside the house. That's what we did that night. We were there with a woman's body and, the smell.
Suddenly Roy, our sergeant, gathers us. I think it was around nighttime, I don't remember exactly when. He says, just so you know, we're now under the command of Division 99. We weren't connected to any regular command structure. Right now, we're under 99. We're not under the Paratroopers anymore. It was something very strange, something very unclear. And next to us, we keep hearing the machine gun fire, really thundering, the bullets and the whistle of explosions of, here's Lothar, here's Shayetet, here's Maglan.
Yeah, during the night, one of the most significant tasks we had, I think, was that all sorts of wounded people were brought to us who weren't necessarily from our battalion. And I really remember how Nathan was treating them, and in the meantime, we had to secure the area. Every now and then, our own forces would go out to different houses. I know that our sergeant and a few other guys rescued an elderly woman along with her caregiver.
our sorties from the house. Like, we were basically tasked with conducting searches in the area. Each time they'd tell us, go to this house, clear it, check it, and then return. We basically made a lot of runs like that throughout the night.
You could really see the whole area, the line of houses that was on fire and the fighting happening there. And you could actually feel the ground shaking from the helicopter fire, the helicopter machine guns hitting the ground. You really felt like there were these booms in the earth, and it just went on for hours, all the way until morning, really.
On Sunday morning, our company commander gave us an order to search the houses around us, to look for any survivors from the kibbutz and that there might still be terrorists. This was supposedly after most of Be'eri had already been secured by us. At that moment, he asked who had battery on their phone. And I had battery because, I'd been trying to contact my girlfriend who was in Ofakim at the time, so I charged it with a power bank. I told him I had battery on my phone, and he said that in addition, one of the tasks assigned to us was that we had to count the bodies and categorize them as soldiers, civilians, and terrorists.
The next morning, we went out again for more sweeps. We kept going. It was part of clearing the entire kibbutz, and even though they'd gone through many houses, there was still a very serious concern about finding terrorists. So we went out to sweep a few more houses, and we were in 2 columns on the main road of the kibbutz, and my sergeant was engaged.
At a certain point, we reached an overgrown area, and the company commander told us to check the bushes as well. Roy was leading the force with his point squad, and they were the ones who entered that area of bushes. They identified the bodies of terrorists. I heard Roy yelling to me. I was 5th or 6th in the formation, yelling for me to write on the phone that there are 2 terrorists here or a terrorist. I was about to write on the phone, and then I heard a burst of fire, and I heard, he's alive, and I literally saw them getting into a firing position and shooting him at point-blank range. Maybe he was on drugs, or I don't know how, but after they did that, he kept on shooting.
The incident took about half an hour, 20 minutes until we took down that terrorist, and we really made sure there was nothing else. The sergeant was critically wounded. From there, basically we continued to do what our mission was. Basically, we started going house to house and shouting IDF to see if there were any terrorists, if there were any civilians. If there were civilians, to find them, try to get them out towards the entrance of the house so it would be easier for Zaka to get them out.
So where we were, we returned to the Nepal to get a more updated order from the MTAC and to understand what was happening from that point on. Our team split into 2. The team that was in Be'eri split into 2, and I led one of the forces, which was my squad, all the guys here next to me. And we started to clear the houses we were assigned. And our other half also started clearing the houses they were assigned. And so we went from house to house. We received, at that point, in that set of houses, we were assigned 4 houses. We cleared the first one. It was indeed clear. The second one was also clear. Of course, outside, we saw many terrorists on the ground and weapons. Unfortunately, there were also many dead civilians. So one of the ones that I remember well is when we got to a certain house. We got there in the morning, but we had already been there the night before. And we cleared it again. Because throughout the night, they kept telling us that terrorists were moving around the kibbutz and we didn't know what was going on. So we went over all the houses we'd been in one more time, and it had an attic. We had already been there last night, and we said we should go up, we have to go up and check it again. You're not sure what's up there. It's not a clean entry, climbing up a ladder that comes down from the ceiling. You just go into whatever is there, just to know that every house is empty, like there's no other way.
We had to get into the safe room from the outside through the window, and they were like, come on, just break the window. And first I just looked at it, and for me, it was really hard. In the end, the one who broke it was Noam.
What's wrong with you, you idiot? Boom!
And it was really hard for me to, break something.
The whole house is burnt.
An Israeli, and it's a house where just a second ago people were living their lives, and you digest part of the situation, and for the other part you just have to say, okay, I'm digesting it, but I still have to keep moving forward. Getting stuck on it right now isn't even an option. So it's a kind of mix, it's a kind of a whirlwind of emotions.
So we got to the house after we'd removed bodies from the other houses and had also gone inside them. The vibe was more like, Gomo, come on, let's just finish this, Because we felt like there were no terrorists around. So we get there and we see 5 bodies of terrorists lying on the ground. We walk right past them. Anyway, so we got to the house. It was a house with a big glass window, you know, a new house. All the other houses we've been through were full of holes and stuff. This was a house where you'd really think. I actually said to Jesse as we were standing there looking at the house through the glass, I told him, bro, there's no one here. Like whoever was in the house left, you know, or they weren't here for Shabbat. There's just no way anyone was here because the house, the living room is intact, the kitchen is intact, everything's fine. Jesse said, all right, cool. He said, Adani, you go right into the living room, you go left into the kitchen, you know, we'll clear the house and move on. So we start shouting, IDF, IDF.
I spot them from a distance, planning my approach. We're moving towards them, my squad, the guys here on the sides. Noam and I take positions at the entrance. I take a look, trying to see the layout inside, and then I direct us. I'll take the right. Noam, you take the left towards the kitchen. We shout IDF, IDF, to make sure we don't accidentally hit any civilians. We enter, we're inside. And, well, the moment we entered, we split up at the entrance. I went right, he went left, gunfire erupted. A huge burst of fire hit the entrance right where we came in. I had just turned right and didn't quite see where the gunfire was coming from. The shots came from behind me. I went straight out the window over there on the right side of the house. The moment I got out, I dropped to the ground facing the house. I look to my left. I see 3 soldiers beside me who I assumed were my squad. And I decide to throw a grenade inside. The grenade goes right in, 21, 22. Everyone shouts after me. It explodes.
He tells me, go in. I tell him, we're going in. At that moment, they open fire on us. I snap to the left and he snaps to the right. As I snapped left, I looked and saw someone, a terrorist, peeking out. And like, he didn't see me, but I saw him. And it was a very good angle. So I started shooting in his direction. And I look over at Jassy. I see Jesse yelling, terrorists, and then he goes out the window. I keep shooting at the terrorists. And in my head, I'm thinking there's 1, maybe 2 terrorists. I'll take them down. They didn't see me, I saw them. We're at a distance of 3 meters, you know, 10 bullets and they're dead. And I shot and I shot and I shot and I shot. And then I just stopped shooting because I was sure I'd killed them. And the moment I stopped shooting, I hear everyone outside screaming, grenade! And so I turn around and I see the grenade fall to the floor. I said, damn it, and lay down on the floor. And actually 2-3 seconds later, the grenade really exploded. Maybe a second after, I don't know. A grenade went off, and after the explosion, another grenade went off, and then another. And I was sure that like all the grenades were ours. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, my friends threw 3 grenades into the house. If I survive this, there's no way anyone else is in the house and survived. Like, it's insane. And so I'm yelling to my friends that I'm wounded. I check my legs and everything, and I see I have a lot of shrapnel in them, but like, I'm okay, you know? I mean, really, my legs are still there. You still can't believe it at all, you know, the situation, but you're like, okay, I'm fine. So what's the catch? What's the catch? There has to be a catch, because you don't understand what the catch is. Like, you don't feel any pain, but the adrenaline, you know, you just don't get the catch.
The moment they start shooting at us from the house, we realize the engagement is coming from inside. The company commander yells for me to move up to him because I was lagging a bit behind. I start moving towards him, and as I do, I take a bullet in the thigh. Right as I get down behind cover, I look to my right and left and see that there are a lot of wounded, that I'm not the only one. I decide right then to keep going. And a few seconds later, we realize we hear Hebrew coming from inside the house. So we understand the grenade was actually thrown at one of our own. The moment we realized that, we wanted to know who it was. The guys who weren't inside didn't understand what was happening and thought maybe it was friendly fire at first. Zaitun at that moment said, Dorfzaun is still inside, Dorfzaun is still inside. The moment we realized Dorfzaun was inside, some of the guys tried to communicate with him, but he couldn't really hear us over all the gunfire. At one point I asked him if he was wounded. Dorfzaun answers from inside the house that he is. I asked him where he was because at that point I'm thinking we're going to go in to get him out. He tells me he's in the kitchen.
I scream to him, I'm hit, I'm in the kitchen. The moment I yell to him, I'm hit, I'm in the kitchen, I hear a burst of fire. I look over here, I hear a burst from the direction of the terrorists towards the glass door. And at that point, I basically tell myself it's better to be wounded outside than wounded inside. I don't know how, but I get to my feet and I get back on the angle with the terrorists. I fire about 20 rounds at them, my whole magazine, and then I just sprint outside. Now I know the soldiers are on the left side of the kitchen, so I sprint to the right away from the house. And that's where I see Jassy on the grass, on the ground, and he's yelling at me, I'm hit, I'm hit. I realize he's wounded, and at that point I also see everyone. I remember lifting my head and seeing everyone like right in the bushes and everything, just looking at us. And that's when I really felt the pain, like suddenly. It's impossible to explain it. It's like something comes down from above, just takes you down. I just collapsed on the ground. I felt like that was it. I had no legs. I basically lay down next to Jassy, and from there I crawled to the side. Natan basically treated me. He like took off my pants, checked me for shrapnel and all that. You know, you don't know what your situation is until someone tells you, it's okay, you've got shrapnel. You know, if you have your legs, as long as you have your legs, you're fine.
First, to return fire, and second, to provide some kind of cover so that the terrorists really don't raise their heads, to really start taking them down, firing non-stop. I emptied a 30-round magazine in about 7 seconds, really. Just trying to provide the best suppression possible so that to buy as much time as possible for Dorfzaun or to engage in some kind of firefight with the terrorists.
There was a range where the terrorists weren't shooting. At this point, Dorfzaun comes out. I see him covered in blood. Really, I remember it visually. His whole legs area was covered in blood. He gets outside, and I see that he's moved to an area where the terrorists aren't shooting at him, and I'm completely relieved. The moment I realize he made it out and everything is okay, I look to my right and I see Jassy, the commander who was injured, the one who threw the grenade. I see him lying on the ground, on the grass, right in front of their line of fire, in a pool of blood. I realize that, like any second, a bullet could hit him. They've already hurt him, but every moment, a bullet could kill him. I see him messing with his leg. I don't really understand what's going on there. Eventually, I realized he was putting a tourniquet on himself, and I shout to him, Jassy, come here, Jassy, crawl over here. He tells me, I can't. And I can literally see the bullets landing 20 centimeters, 30 centimeters away from him. It was really like a matter of seconds. I yell to my company commander next to me. I tell him to lay down fire towards the house. The company commander lays down fire towards the house, and I grab him and start dragging him.
I turn onto my back for a moment. I look at my legs. One leg was okay, as much as you can say that. It looked relatively fine. I mean, it took a bullet, but not like the other one. The other one, really, it looked bad. I take out the tourniquet and put it on. I look to the left, see my friend Liron, and shout to him like, Liron, Liron. Of course, he sees me too, because we were actually pretty close to each other. And he just runs to me and starts dragging me backward. On the way, he also got shot in the leg. I remember he really made an effort. He dragged me. He said to me, Jassy, help me. I told him like, listen, I can't move my legs. And he grabbed me by the vest and dragged me back. And during this time, of course, there's a lot of gunfire and everyone's shouting and organizing the fight against the terrorists. What I remember most is just us. I'm being dragged back. And I'm waiting there for evacuation while they start to engage in the fight.
At this point, they can't pull both me and him to the cover we were at before because the company commander was there and there was no room. I started dragging him back toward the road. I began dragging him. At first, the powerful adrenaline was still very strong, so I was feeling quite strong. At some point, I get in from behind some large boulder. I go in there with Jesse. I carefully ask him what's his current condition. I see he has a tourniquet on, so I'm relatively calm. He tells me to check his tourniquet to see that the tourniquet is tight enough. I put a finger under his tourniquet. I start to feel it, and I see that it's tight enough, even though all the exit wounds were on his front, so it was a really graphic sight. So I tell him everything will be okay, and that we'll get him an evac. He tells me, just get me that evac. I try to calm him down. Meanwhile, I fire a few rounds, and I look at my own wound. I see that the bleeding has spread, and that it wasn't small like before, but from dragging him, it became significant. I realize I have to put a tourniquet on myself. I take out the tourniquet, start putting it on, while firing a few rounds. Meanwhile, I'm looking left and right, looking for a way we can evacuate from here. I'm putting on the tourniquet, and I see the battalion commander at the same time on my right behind me. I shout to the battalion commander that we need an urgent evac, and I signal to him with my hand where the terrorists are. I tighten the tourniquet, and meanwhile I see that the battalion commander arrived with stretcher bearers, guys with a stretcher. I shout to them to come evacuate us. They say they can't get there because they have to cross a line of fire. So I realize I have to drag him again. I grab Jassy, start dragging him. I grab him by the hands. At this point, with the tourniquet on, it was tough for me. At a certain point, I just said, okay, there's nothing to be done. I take my weapon. I moved the weapon back on the sling to my back. I grabbed him and started dragging him. I told myself, I got it into my head, think of it as a drill, think of it as a drill. I started dragging him. At a certain point, I managed to drag him to another boulder after we fell a few times there. And really, this whole time, bullets are passing by us. so I tried as much as possible to disconnect from the situation and think of it as a drill. We reached the boulder, and at that point, we were already right next to them. And the guys arrived with the stretcher, put Jesse on it. I leaned on them and started hopping on one leg all the way to the casualty collection point.
Okay, but you're kind of expecting, I don't know, either they're lying to me or just trying to calm me down, and you're waiting for what feels like an eternity. And I hear him shouting, I'm in Sajaya, where's my evacuation? And it's the most stressful thing ever, you know? You're just waiting there. All kinds of phrases like, there's no ETA for the evacuation, and really it was... I didn't feel any pain in those moments because, I don't know, maybe it was all the adrenaline and all that. The pain came later, but the pressure was very intense.
There was a brief moment of calm, and I immediately took advantage of it to reload the magazine, and Omer moves up to my position. Omer Levy, the company commander, moves up to me. We're both right there, behind the same tree trunk. I see Omer, he's really focused, looking down his sights. Our faces are really close to each other, we're just facing in different directions. He's covering the yard, I'm covering the house. I see him looking down his sights, just about to pull the trigger, and then his pupils dilate, and the next thing I remember is him screaming, "Grenade!" He and I take off from there in a mad sprint, like each of us is just trying to get out of there as fast as possible. I hear a boom, and the next thing I see is my hand covered in blood, and also a huge splatter on my glasses. A splatter so bad it was hard for me to see. And I realized I have to get myself out of there as fast as possible because right now I'm in a very, very exposed position with no cover while they're trying to get a bead on me. And the terrorist who threw the grenade at us has probably already drawn his weapon and is about to start spraying us with bullets. Eventually I find a car. It turns out that this car was a kind of safe place. And I decide to take a moment to take a step back and start treating the wounded. Basically, Dorfzaun's injury was shrapnel all over his legs, shoulders, back. Everything in that area was bleeding, and he was also having trouble walking. There was another soldier who was wounded, Zaytun. I instructed another soldier on how to apply a bandage to him. I arrived at the evacuation point with a unit I had joined, which I didn't really know from the battalion. That's also where I recognized Niran and Jassi. Niran was still conscious, Jassi was a bit less so. The medic who was with him, I basically moved him away from the immediate area. And from there I started my own treatment on Niran. Everything I remember from that moment, the procedure, everything that was needed, I really felt that there I really managed to show what I had learned all this time and what I had worked on and what exact training I did and why I prepared for this exact moment. When there's a wounded person, I believe I did an excellent job and did it by the book.
אחד שמספר אני משנה את ההרגלים כי זה עולה לי בהרבה ולא בפן הכלכלי אני סוחב עליי הרבה בתור אחד החיילים והקורסה שלך נוחה לי כמו לשכב על גחלים זה שום דבר אישי נגדך את בטח מבינה רק חור שרוף בנפש אצל חצי מדינה אני חוזר מתוך הארץ כל האש והשנאה ומלחמה על מי יגיד את המילה האחרונה כי את יודעת הם חשבו שגיבורים כבר לא עפים במו עיניי ראיתי גיבורים שנשרפים ראיתי קיבוצים נופלים כמו מגדל קלפים על האדמה בוערת כולם רצו יחפים והסיפור הזה כותב את עצמו דרך אדם רצון לנקמה הופך אותך לפרא אדם לזכיר החרב של כל אמא שבוכה ומתפללת כי היא לא תראה את הילד שלה שוב לעולם
מסתובב עם ראש נפול הגוף חשוף נפש שצריכה טיפול כי כלום לא יהיה רפא עכשיו את השריטות
רצח בעיניים זה אני אהוב ואנימוס השתם על הידיים שלהם אני לא כזה טיפוס רעד ברגליים שהפחד עוד צובר ביסוס מלא בתספיחים שלי כמו אדי גם הזמן לא זז ונדפקו הכפתורים, חלקם הלכו כמו אריות ויש גם חלק לא חוזרים. אני יושב מולך עכשיו, עולים לי 1000 סיפורים, אני לא רוצה להידפק מזיכרון של גיל 20. הם אומרים שלפעמים עדיף פשוט לשתוק, והאמת שלי זה די מתאים לשמור את זה רחוק מהסיפור שלי. סיבוב שני בקרב עם הקירות, הרבה יותר ממה שתשמעי בין השורות. אני יודע שבטוח זה ישיר עליי צלקת, יש מצב שהיא תהיה שם לתמיד, ואת יושבת על ספץ מעל לכל טיפה של רגש, כל שכבה שאת תצליחי להוריד. רק לפני שנייה יצאנו, סיפורים כבר מתחברים לי, יש דברים שלא הצלחתי להפריד, ופה ושם את מחייכת, קצת יפה וקצת צודקת, בוא תגידי מה שיש לך להגיד.
מסתובב עם ראש נפול, הגוף חשוף, נפש שצריכה טיפול, כי כלום לא יהיה רפא עכשיו את השריטות.